defining the computer of tomorrow, and we were talking about what to talk about, and I boldly was just like, no computers anymore. I'm sick of them, sick of looking at them, sick of carrying around these little triangles, rectangles, sorry. Very strange computer would be a triangle. And I genuinely believe that there won't be a personal computer within maybe 10 or 20 years. Like, it's not going away. It's your next computer definitely will be a computer. But within the next 10 to 20 years, it won't. And I think as I was trying to understand the title that I so flippantly gave the talk, I started drilling down on it a little bit more. And it's not just about having goggles instead of a computer. That's part of it. And that's kind of why I wanted to start with the data landscape that we lie in as well. But let's start with the goggles. So at this current point, there's basically this spectrum. We've got the ability to understand environments. So we've got 3D scanning, we've got SLAM, we've got visual positioning systems. All these things help a computer understand where it is in the environment, which is critical for delivering 3D content to someone in a way that makes sense. So as you move around, your computer understands that. Microsoft actually said that the biggest part of their spatial computing play is actually computer vision. So it's not about what we see, it's about what our devices see when they are looking at their environment so that they can understand where they're up to. So the ability to understand an environment, hypercritical. Then we've got augmented reality, which essentially is overlaying space with digital content. Obviously this Pokemon Go, arguably anything's augmented reality. This is kind of augmented reality, to be honest. We've got reality, we've augmented it with a digital interface. It just happens to be an old school projector, or kind of middle school, I guess.
Don't forget the Terminator.
Most commonly though, you'd understand augmented reality as digital content that isn't just superimposed in the world, but is placed spatially in the world. So I can put a digital object here, and as I walk around and inspect it, I inhabit that space with it. Incredibly powerful. The first time, it changed my career completely. The first time I built a little app with Unity, had no idea what I was doing, completely just guessing, years and years ago now, I know now, sort of, and I was just blown away. I was like, there's a digital thing, and it's not there, but it's there. As soon as you have a relationship with it, it becomes real, which is really useful for data, AI, things like that. Then there's virtual reality, which is a completely immersive space where you put the goggles on, suddenly you're in a completely digital world, which has probably a bit less hype about it because it's kind of not old news, but everyone's sort of heard about it, but is incredible to be able to go into a digital space, have like an organic human interaction with digital information, which is a clinical way to say human expression, human art, human creation, and is also an infinite possibility space in the sense that you can simulate nearly anything and do it over and over again. So you can break as many things that you're trying to learn. And the only limit to virtual reality is the bandwidth. So right now we're still pretty like early days with what we see, but we're also super early days with the way that we interact with it as well. And then finally there's mixed reality, which is the ability to essentially have wearables and move between virtual worlds and then augmented worlds. So I could be wearing my glasses and I could see, like, say, a digital learning point here, right? I'm like, okay, cool, I want to learn a little bit more. And then it converts the entire room into, say, historic recreation of something or other. But the way Microsoft puts it really well with mixed reality is it is this spectrum of reality. And you basically turn the dial from 0, which is here, it's reality, maybe 0.01, because we've got this there as well. And then, won't go too far down that route. Then all the way up to 1, which is virtual reality. The term that people are using now is extended reality, which is really just the word that everyone's using at the moment. So just remember it. Don't talk to me about it when they change it. Extended reality means everything. And the interesting thing where extended reality, so I'm just going to have a little sip of water if that's okay. The part where extended reality becomes interesting is where it does this really focuses on computer vision and the ability to display digital vision for you, is where it then does start to blend with Internet of Things, sensors, and other things like that. So we can see anything now. We can see it in a completely enclosed virtual space, or we can put any type of content into the real world. Pretty cool, probably by itself not enough to wear big dumb goggles all the time. Ambient computing, on the other hand, is a part of this, and it's this term that I heard and I was just like, I love it, and it really did become the linchpin for why I wanted to talk about this tonight. It's the combination of all the other factors behind computing that are changing now and mean that you won't really need a device particularly. You'll need a high-powered display mechanism sometimes, maybe not all the time. Firstly, you've got your user, which is essentially this bundle of data. It's a digital twin of a person. I don't mean a 3D model. I mean biometric health sensor data, work, credit scores, current, your Mikey top up, all that right now. You are essentially, you've got a digital twin. It's mostly in your wallet and your DNA. And anyone with like a Fitbit or something like that, you get the idea. Then your environment, which is becoming more and more intelligent. So right now, when you check in at the door, it's on a piece of paper. But in the future, undoubtedly, what will happen is as you go into a space, not the digital twin is in this ghost spirit, but whatever manages the sort of the information about the space, you're like, okay, this person's here, great. I won't talk about how the server infrastructure will look, but essentially, it'll know that you're there. It'll know who else is there. It'll curate the content for the shared space. It'll curate personal content and individual connections and things like that as well. It'll also know about itself, and it'll also know its own history and its own future, things like that as well. So all of a sudden, you've offloaded some of the computing requirements that go into your phone because you don't have to store the ticket, for example. Not a high pressure thing, but you know what I mean. Secondly, you've got your wearables, and this is where I've heard a really interesting thing is this idea of the earpods, Apple's little things. Who's got earpods? Hey, you get it. All right. Guess it's just you. That's fine. It's actually Apple's first play in getting people used to the idea of wearables. It's essentially a computer interface where obviously it plays music and things like that, but it's also a really intelligent way to keep your verbal relationship with your personal artificial intelligence super streamlined, super chill. It's just in your ear. So essentially, things like your Fitbit, your Apple Pods, or whatever type of sensor or voice detection system you use to communicate with your artificial intelligence. And finally, at the moment, your visualization system for this infinite world of digital possibilities is this little screen. But eventually, my proposition is that it'll be replaced with barely noticeable glasses that then surface digital content to you as well. And finally, the cloud. Cloud computing is an integral part of this entire hyper-connected digital layer that we will get access to and then add to and consume content from. So hyperconnectivity will be a huge part of it. So you'll be, let's say in the future, your general actions and movements are sort of streamed and stored. Your digital twin is literally a living spirit of you that exists both in this space, but potentially any other digital twin in the world, or at least like enough data points to show your hands and your head movement. You'll then be able to say, have a friend in Norway and say, oh, yeah, sounds really cool. Let me dial in, and you pop into that digital twin as well. All of that is only possible with 5G or 6G, 7G, and cloud computing. So as we stream photogrammetric content, say for example, we had this room streaming as a live updating 3D model. Not possible now, but it will be quite easy in the future. Then to have that work, you need 5G. Then to be able to deliver these kind of rich digital experiences, as well as process things like AI, decision making and stuff like that. They're going to take it all out of this. This won't do anything. This won't exist. That'll all be done through cloud computing, which means that while today server database can be a bit inefficient, like every time you use Amazon, you're probably using like a liter of petrol, let's say, not sure, some bad number. I remember seeing a shocking article about how much using Amazon even for one request uses, and I was like, I don't want to read the whole thing, but it sounds like it's bad, so all right. How we doing? So that'll all be in the cloud. Data processing, storage, and decision making, rendering, 3D, especially for spatial computing, it's a lot of 3D rendering. That'll all be done in the cloud. Wearables won't just be a single device, it'll be a diffuse connection of devices. It will be your smart fridge at home that makes decisions about your dietary requirements. It will be your car, really, part of your route planning, things like that will be offloaded to your car. It won't really be a centralized database. And spatial computing will really just be the visualizer for that, because in the future, these devices, static panels and interfaces won't work anymore. You'll have devices that are essentially rewriting their own functionality, and if we have these static control interfaces, the little panel on the fridge, that really limits what these devices can do. So we need adaptive displays and interfaces. So, bit of a cheesy shot, but we'll be walking around, just forget about the sort of mirror ball face going on, but we'll be walking around and devices, contexts, locations, and people will surface different types of interactions and interfaces that will really become just a part of life.